Hello, first graders. Welcome back to week 7, day 1. For today's day 1 lesson, all you need is your thinking cap and your listening ears. So let's get started. I have a definition that's missing a word. My definition says, a verb is a word that shows what? What do you think fills the blank in? Action. A verb is a word that shows action. You can see me running at the bottom of the screen. Running is an action word. To start off our lesson, we're going to be using verbs to help us complete a Birds in the Wilderness song. Read the name of the song with me. Birds in the Wilderness. I've taken our verbs chart from a few weeks back, and I have filled in our Birds in the Wilderness song. Under each missing line, it told me what to put. A weak verb, a bird name, a strong verb, a bird name, and I chose hummingbirds. So I went to my verb column, I found the hummingbird, and then I filled in the verbs that we used from lessons past. I chose the words drink, gulp, and hummingbird. Our song titled Birds in the Wilderness discusses the wilderness, which is an area in nature with trees and wild animals. And it walks us through what birds are doing in the wilderness. This song helps us see how verbs can have similar things, but that they can be stronger or weaker in describing things. Join along with me as we sing this song for the first time. If you'd like to listen the first time, that's okay, because we'll sing it again, and we'll practice it throughout the week, using different birds from our verb chart. We'll start here at the word here. Are you ready? Here we drink like hummingbirds in the wilderness, hummingbirds in the wilderness, hummingbirds in the wilderness. Here we gulp like hummingbirds in the wilderness, drink and gulp like birds. All right, try this time to sing with me. We'll start it here. Are you ready? Here we drink like hummingbirds in the wilderness, hummingbirds in the wilderness, hummingbirds in the wilderness. Here we gulp like hummingbirds in the wilderness, drink and gulp like birds. Good job! Let's do it one more time, using a loud, clear voice. Here we drink like hummingbirds in the wilderness, hummingbirds in the wilderness, hummingbirds in the wilderness. Here we gulp like hummingbirds in the wilderness, drink and gulp like birds. Good job! Thanks for joining me in singing Birds in the Wilderness. We will repeat this song in lessons throughout the week using different birds. Now that we've warmed up our voices, our brains, and our bodies, we can take a look at today's learning target. Today's target says, I can analyze a model to learn about the parts of an informative paragraph. There are some tricky words in here. First, let's look at the word analyze. Analyze means to examine something closely. First graders, what will we be examining closely? I can closely examine a model to learn about the parts of an informative paragraph. Let's underline that word, informative. Informative is writing that informs the reader using facts and details about a subject. Friends, today we will analyze a paragraph about feathers. and that will help us learn more about the parts of an informative paragraph. We have looked at this chart before, so hopefully it looks familiar to you. This is the parts of an informative paragraph anchor chart. The parts are on the left-hand side, and their jobs are on the right-hand side. Let's read over it just to review. Read this with me. Focus statement. It tells the big idea of your piece of writing. That's the first sentence in the informative paragraph. Detail sentence 1. The detail sentences help the reader understand the focus statement. 1. Sentence that describes the first body part. 2. Sentence that tells what the part does. Detail sentence 2. The detail sentences help the reader understand the focus statement. 1. Sentence that describes the second body part. 2. Sentence that tells what the body part does. And lastly, we have the conclusion. It wraps up your piece and reminds the reader of the big idea. The conclusion is always the very last sentence in your informational paragraph. Are you ready to take a look at the paragraph about feathers? Here is the shared writing paragraph about feathers in this box. And I've also included our parts of the informative paragraph off to the side so that we can reference it as we need to. As we're reading this paragraph, we're going to stop along the way trying to take note of the different parts of the paragraph. We'll color code them to help us. Let's start with the very first sentence. We're going to start at the word birds, and we're going to read all the way through the paragraph. Then we'll go back and read part by part, trying to take notice of the parts. Birds' feathers help them survive in many ways. Some birds have thick feathers. These feathers protect them like sunscreen. Other birds have colored feathers that match their habitat. These feathers help the bird to hide. Feathers protect birds from the sun, the cold, and predators. Okay, readers, let's go back to that first sentence at the top. Read this again with me. Birds' feathers help them survive in many ways. This sentence is the focus statement. It's the first sentence of the paragraph. That means that the job of this sentence is it tells the big idea of the piece of writing. So, what is the big idea of this piece of writing? It's all about what? It's all about how birds' feathers help them survive. Good. Now let's see if we can find detail sentences 1 and 2. Point to where you think they are. Good. And what about the next detail sentence 2? Point to where that is. Good. And what about the conclusion of our paragraph? Where's the conclusion? That's right. The conclusion is at the bottom of our paragraph. Read the conclusion down here with me. Feathers protect birds from the sun, the cold, and predators. This wraps up what our first sentence said. Feathers help them survive in many ways. This sentence lists the many ways. It protects birds from the sun, the cold, and the predators. Good job. Now we need to go back and find that detail sentence or sentences. Read it to me as I move the mouse across the words. Good. Did these sentences that are underlined in yellow describe the body part? It told us that they were thick feathers. And did they tell us what the body part does? Yes, these thick feathers protect them like sunscreen. Now we found the focus, the conclusion, and detail sentences 1. What about sentence 2? Where is that going to be? There it is. Read those sentences to me as I move the mouse across the sentences. What was the body part that was described? Colored feathers. What does that body part do? The colored feathers help the bird to hide. Good job. Was it easy for us to be able to go through this informational paragraph and think about all the different parts that are within the paragraph? That's right, it was. We were able to dissect that paragraph, thinking about the focus, the conclusion, and all of the details in the middle. I like to think of informational paragraphs like sandwiches. The focus statement is a piece of bread. Then we have our cheese with the detail sentence, our meat with the next detail sentence, and another piece of bread. That's a yummy sandwich. We were able to use these colors to help us better understand the informative paragraph. This is something that you could do next time you are reading an informative paragraph. You could get out your crayons or some highlighters and try to find the different parts of the paragraph. That would show that you are an advanced reader and researcher. Friends, were we able to analyze a model to learn more about the parts of an informative paragraph? That's right, we were. We were able to read that informative paragraph very closely and think about all the facts that were inside of the informative paragraph. And we took a look at the parts along the way. Thank you for joining me and helping me analyze that model. I'll see you next time, researchers. Bye, friends.